Hello, everyone. For the first time, we can officially say welcome back to Gateway Tailgate, your one-stop podcast for everything St. Louis sports. I am Sean Sproat. That's Adam Freeman, and as you can see, it is a two-man show today. Kenny Hutton is on assignment in Vegas, and he's already sending some very dubious photos to our group message, which, yes, you can rest assured we will use for nefarious purposes when the time comes.
As always, I just find it funny that we start up something new and we're like, yeah, this is what we really want to do, and the second week we're down a man. I mean, it's just how it works.
You feel like he planned it? Like he immediately, like we decided to go ahead and do this, and he just submitted his PTO for the year? That's basically what he did.
Wait, we have PTO?
Hold on, no, we're going to cut that out. No, we do not have PTO. I don't know where that would come from.
Damn.
Should we take a bet on if he comes back with less money or more money?
Oh, 100% it's going to be less. Actually, well, yeah, it's going to be less because he likes to do futures bets. So he likes to do the stuff, the championships, things like that. So I would almost bet you that he's putting money on the Mizzou game. So the Mizzou game is not going to go until Thursday. We're recording on Sunday. He's coming home on Wednesday. He will be less money because of that. But he is not winning anything. They're 100% true on that.
And if he put any money on the last Mizzou game, we're going to get to that for sure. Because he may have lost some money. So,
oh, yeah.
Before we kind of dive into everything this week, a couple really quick mentions, a couple quick shout-outs. We had a surprising comment on our Blue Sky account, which, by the way, we are on the socials. Blue Sky, X, soon to be TikTok. I think that's it for right now, but it is at Gateway Tailgate. Is that right?
Sure.
That
sounds
feels
good.
right. That feels right. Yeah. So Gateway Tailgate, but wait, so like I said, surprising comment. The man himself, the myth, the legend, Wil Wheaton, replied to one of our pregame Blues posts. Quote, "Come on, Kings, do the thing you haven't done for several games." Unquote. Well, they did, in fact, do the thing. And we'll talk about it from a Blues perspective soon enough. But that was pretty cool. So shout out to Wil Wheaton. Hopefully you're watching, man.
That'd be fantastic. I literally just watched this afternoon the episode of Big Bang Theory where I don't know what game they're playing, but Sheldon is trying to get at Wil Wheaton in the championship of Dungeons and Dragons or whatever it is. It's one of my favorite episodes. Just to see his reactions to Wil Wheaton every time always makes me laugh.
It's so funny that you like that show because you are not in a nerd at all. You're not into that
not even a little bit.
Did you even know what Wil Wheaton was originally famous for before that?
When Big Bang Theory was original? No, had no idea.
No, before Big Bang, way before the 90s.
No, I didn't even know until I don't remember how many episodes in of seeing Wil Wheaton. I'm like, who is this guy? Sorry, Will.
Sorry, Will. At least one
really
of us
apologize.
Does. At least one of us does.
But it's still awesome. I mean, to have a connection like that, and then for the Kings to actually do it. And we had John Hamm in the booth for the entire second period of the game the other night. So it was pretty much like John Hamm's power versus Wil Wheaton's power. In the end, Wil Wheaton. So we'll get to it.
Yeah. Hamm has lost a little bit of luster lately, but, he's still St. Louis's own, so he's still one of ours. So speaking of St. Louis's own, how about this week in St. Louis sports history? I only have two for you, and they are a bit of a roller coaster, so just keep that in mind. So first up, this week in St. Louis sports history, 1960, the NFL's Chicago Cardinals moved to St. Louis to become the St. Louis Football Cardinals. On another note, 1988, NFL's St. Louis Football Cardinals moved to Phoenix.
Sounds about right.
Story of our lives. Yeah. I'm also just now realizing that this bit is only good for about 52 weeks because I'm going to eventually just repeat myself. So enjoy these for, I guess, the next 50 weeks.
There was a show that I was watching the other day that was doing something similar, and I'm like, do they just repeat this? And I'm pretty sure that they have, because I've been watching it for a while and just keeps going and going. Just the same thing every week. I mean, it's okay.
Maybe nobody will notice. I don't know. At least next year I'll be able to add a specific St. Louis City SC game that happened. Do you want to talk about that first?
Yeah, let's let it rip. So St. Louis City just finished, as we're recording on Sunday, March 9th, just finished up out in L.A., like it seems like every L.A. team has. City finally gets on the board. They win 3-0 against the L.A. Galaxy. That's a big win for us.
Big win. Both teams kind of came into the game on a bit of a downturn. LA's start of the season has been pretty bad. considering they lost both of their first 2 games. One of them was against an expansion team, San Diego. It's kind of understandable, though, because they've had so many injuries to start the year. Ricky Puig is out for the entire year. Joseph Paintsel is out, but he's going to be coming back fairly soon. And add on top of that, they moved on from like Brugman and Joveljic and all of these other players that left in the offseason. And then you add on CONCACAF Champions Cup on top of that as well. So if you're going to play them in Carson, it's probably the time to do it. Before they get healthy and before they bring in any reinforcements in the summer, if they can even afford to do so with all the weird MLS roster rules and all that. So huge win tonight. Not only did we actually score our first goal of the season, we scored 3 of them. Third straight shutout, which means that I can't think of, I'll have to look it up, if another MLS team has ever started the first 3 games with 3 consecutive shutouts. That'll be an interesting stat you'll probably see kicked around on like MLS sites and on Apple TV and everything over the next week. So quick rundown of the game. It was pretty uneventful for the first 40-ish minutes. In fact, I think LA kind of dominated the majority of that game. A weird goal. Cedric Toyshirt puts in a ball that just bounced around like 5 or 6 times, fell out of LA keeper's hands. He puts it in the back of the net in the 44th minute. Go to halftime. Marcel Hartel scores in the 49th on just some beautiful transition ball. I believe the assist came from Toyshirt as well, so he got himself a goal and assist. And then later on into the game, St. Louis's own Simon Bescher in the 84th minute seals it with pretty much almost a very similar play to Hartel's goal. Very similar transition play. That assist came from Kyle Hebert, who has not passed the ball very well lately, so to see him get an assist and a beautiful through ball is pretty great to see.
Yeah, and he caught a lot of crap early in the first half. Like, if you were on social media watching the first half, Hebert was getting absolutely lit up. And I don't want to say that the first half was uneventful, because really Berkey kept City in that game in the first half.
Yeah. So that's so true whenever you look at like the actual XG and compared to shots on target. The difference in this game, St. Louis expected goals was 2.6, 14 shots, 5 were on target. If you look at LA's, their expected goal was 1.9, 24 shots, 8 on target. So essentially, City outperformed just barely the expected goal total. Roman Berkey did what Roman Berkey does, and then I think it's also proof that Olaf Melberg's system works. That sometimes high line that drops into like a low to mid block, it's working. I'm impressed. I'm through 3 games. I am impressed. I was very worried that this team was going to take a really long time, a really long run up to get to this point where they were kind of implementing his system and kind of getting away from the car crash gegenpressing soccer. They still do that, but it's nowhere near to the level of what they were doing under Carnell or Hack. So it's really great to see.
Yeah, I thought one thing that was really interesting was Twellman pointed out at the end of the game about how possession was so lopsided. I think the Galaxy was at like 70% and we were at 30, something like that. Just, it's crazy. But when you get up 3-0 or even 2-0 at that point, the possession's going to transfer to one side because you're just going to sit back.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing was in the first half, because possession was still pretty heavy for the Galaxy. Like, they had a pretty good push. And the interesting thing about the defense was they held up, they stayed strong, and then once we got the goal, instead of laying back, they actually moved to a higher position, which was awesome to see. You know, they were up there pressing the keeper as soon as he had a chance on the ball, moving it out of the backfield, and I think that was kind of unexpected from them, and I think that's what caught Galaxy off guard. Is that, oh cool, now we got to play the full length of the field. We thought we were only really going to have to deal with half, but he moved him up and moved the pressure. I think that's what contributed to the second goal. Definitely the third goal came on a great run by Bescher and Hebert getting the pass out to him again. But I think if they can work a formation like that and stay strong through the first half, stay close, even get a quick goal or something like that, that switch on a defense is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, completely agree. And a note on the possession. St. Louis had 31% possession, which is 3 percentage points less than they had against San Diego, where they were completely outmatched. So I think Twellman kind of said it on the broadcast where he said possession really doesn't matter. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Not in today's game, not anymore. Not in MLS at least. It really doesn't matter anymore. They could have had 15% possession, and they probably still would have had the same opportunities that they had, because a
Yeah.
lot of those moments came from transition.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's good to see. It was good to see him score. It's good to see him get back to a goal a game. That was kind of nice.
You know what? It takes one of those like really dirty goals to kind of open the floodgates, and that's exactly what happened. I feel so bad for João Klaus because he did
Oh my God.
everything right in this game.
Yeah.
Like, he deserves a goal. I didn't realize he had not scored a goal in 9 months.
Has
That's
it been? Well,
he
he
was
was out
injured.
for a long time last year.
He was injured, but it's still something. Like, I don't have the stat in front of me, but it is still something like 38, 40 something games where he hasn't scored. I would need to pull it up to look at it, but 9 months is a long time without putting the ball in the back of the net when you're a designated player striker in MLS. And but that's the thing. He's doing everything else right. He's making the runs. He was exhausted when he came off the field because he's just putting in the work. Like, if anyone deserves a goal, it's him. When he took that cross off, or excuse me, when he took that shot off of his left foot and it hit the post, I was like, man, this dude cannot buy a goal. Hopefully he gets one soon, because if anyone deserves it, like I said, it's him.
But I think that he's in a position that yes, he can work his ass off and deserves a goal. Like, I'm not going to disagree there. But it's completely different than it was at the beginning of last year or even the year before. And he had such a great year in the first year, 100% a great year. But now he doesn't have to be the guy. He's another one of the guys. He's got Betcher, he's got Toyshirt, he's got Hartle. I mean, like, there's so many more options now for this team to be able to score, and we haven't even gotten to the midfield, like true midfield at that point. Like, this team has a lot more ability to score and doesn't have to rely upon him. It's just super frustrating when he's right on the doorstep and can't kick it across the lines. And you can see it in his face. You can see it in his hairline. It's just receding because of it. The poor guy, like, but yeah, he works his butt off. And honestly, if he would have scored, he would have been man of the match, 100%.
Oh yeah, I am just worried the fact that people are going to see that Bescher score tonight and then automatically start yelling and screaming that Bescher needs to start games. Bescher scored tonight because of the work that Klaus put in. Not 100% completely. Like, we're not going to just throw like Klaus all of like the praise and everything. Obviously, give Bescher his flowers, but I mean, you've got to admit just the work that this man is putting in. And that was a hard 60 minutes that he did, and I mean, props to him, man, for sure.
Do you think there is a better time than Monday morning, in 12 hours, to sign Berkey to an extension?
There is the only better time would have been 2 weeks ago.
Well, yeah, that's true.
No, they need to sign this man. I don't know what the holdup is. I don't know if he's waiting to see if what moves we make in the summer. But if they wait until the summer, then he can sign a preemptive contract somewhere else, and you cannot get to that point. He's the captain of this team. He's the lifeblood of this team. Without him, we don't win this game.
No.
I really don't think that we do. I mean, I read you off the stats earlier. 8 shots on target, and a couple of those were world class.
Yeah.
They've got to get him signed. I don't know how long term it is. I don't know if they give him a 3-year, 4-year deal. He's getting older in age, but we need to ensure that he spends the next probably at minimum 2 years in St. Louis.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would say, is that you probably get, I think you probably do a 3-year, or even if you did a 4-year, I mean, it's not like it's going to be a huge difference. And the interesting thing is them paying down his contract.
Yeah.
Because he's no longer a DP, right? So
Right.
you have to figure out how that plays into it. But if he is the face of your franchise for the next 2 to 3 years, who cares? He's in a position that he can play for a while. You look at the goalies that tend to last around 35 to 40. Maybe it's not the greatest play that you're going to see, but they can last for a while. And even if you take a step back, he's still an average MLS keeper at this point. I mean, he's the best MLS keeper, no doubt. And if he regresses just a little bit and he becomes a mid-level keeper, who cares? It's still better than what you're going to get anywhere else.
That's what I was going to say. If he regresses, you're still getting a middle-of-the-road MLS goalkeeper. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm so tired of people saying, "Oh, he's getting older. Like, he's not worth the money." Even if it's on a TAM deal or a DP deal, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Pay him. Brad Guzan is 40 years old, and he's out there playing for Atlanta, and he stood on his head and knocked Miami out of the playoffs.
Right.
So why are we sign him? Sign Berkey. Roman, if you're listening, my guy, please come back.
I'll bring the paper. I'll bring a pen.
Yes.
City's just got to fund the check, and we'll get it done.
You sign, and like, I don't think it's hyperbole to say that they will erect a statue outside of City Park of that man. I know it's like so early in the franchise.
Oh, yeah.
And that's such a ridiculous thing to do that some sports clubs do around the world. I don't care. We'll do it.
I think, though, that, and not that I think that they're the same player, but I think as far as the heartbeat of St. Louis goes, Tim Parker was in that.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like they absolutely messed that one up.
Yes.
That I don't think that there's any way that they let this happen to where they let him get away. But if they do, it's going to absolutely kill the fan base. One more thing, or I guess technically it'll be two more things for you for soccer. What is the one thing in 3 games that you are the most impressed by?
I mean, the easy answer is the defense, just in general. But I think I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to say, just specifically, I think I'm going to say Kessler. He's been lights out. I mentioned him in last week's episode. He did it again today. We had 12 clearances, majority of which came from him. And I know fans were upset that we got rid of Parker. We got a genuine potential. Yeah, we got an upgrade, a potential world-class center back in Kessler. I truly believe that. He's keeping guys like Baumgartel, who is a Bundesliga vet, on the bench. And I like Baumgartel. I don't think he's very mobile, so I don't know how well he can play at 90 minutes across in where Hebert's playing, where he gets isolated on the outsides. So I think Baumgartel, his position would be Kessler's, and Kessler is doing that's his position. That is his position now. That's probably the most impressive to me. And then, like I said, maybe Olaf Melberg's tactics in general, just because I really wasn't expecting them. His subs specifically really surprised me. I did not like them, and I was watching tonight, and I started firing up a tweet about how I didn't like the subs, and then we scored 4 minutes later, and I was like, well, you know what? I don't know what to say anymore. Like, so yeah, defense, Kessler, and then Olaf has really surprised me, and I'm happy he finally got his first win.
So flip it. What's the negative you've seen in 3 games, other than the lack of scoring in the first 2?
Oh, the depth at defensive mid. Even though I just got done praising the defensive side of the ball, I think we do let too many passes go through the middle, which gives that they almost like an outlook through the middle. They play through a lot of teams play through the middle and immediately bounce it outside, and they're looking for their runners down the flanks. We let that pass slip past Leuven and slip past Watts or Durkin, whoever's playing in that position right there. We let that through too often instead of forcing them to the outside. The other one is Hebert. I think you knew where I was going to go with that. His on the ball passing is just not good enough, and tonight he almost handed a goal to Gabriel Peck. He made up for it later with the assist. It was a very good assist. That was farther up the field. I'm not talking about in transition whenever he's making those runs. I'm talking about playing out of pressure and playing to where he can transition the ball up the line as opposed to constantly just recycling it back to Berkey. And I feel like he relies on that too often. He plays safe. I need him to take a few more risks up the line, not through the middle and hand the ball right to Gabriel Peck. That's probably not ideal.
Of all the guys you could hand the ball to, that's not the guy. I mean, Messi would be probably the next guy you don't want to hand the ball to.
Yeah, and I
or really anybody, and that's not in a City jersey at that point, probably would score.
Yeah, and he's on the field because he's a really good one-on-one defender. When he gets isolated, he's very good, and so I'm worried that the negative is starting to outweigh the positive with him. And I don't know if we have a center back on the roster that has that in their bag. Because, like I said, I think Baumgartel's more of a central center back. But I guess it's still too early to tell. We've only seen 6 minutes of him, so it is hard to say. But I need Hebert to clean it up.
Cool. So let's go from one St. Louis City team with potential depth issues to maybe another one. The Blues have a massive week in LA and Orange County. Let's just go there. I think they traveled for 3 games, a total of like 50 miles. That was it, which might be the shortest 3-game road trip ever on the history books. But started out on Wednesday night. They played the Los Angeles Kings in LA at cryptocurrency.com arena.
Terrible name for a stadium, by the way.
It is so bad. I still call it Staples Center.
Whenever I'm trying to type in like this name of the stadium, it immediately takes me to a crypto website, which I'm pretty sure was the point of getting those
100%.
naming rights. Don't like it, hate it. Anyway,
terrible. But it was a 3-2 shutout victory for the Blues. Absolutely phenomenal, and it seems like it's a trend in St. Louis. But phenomenal play from the goalkeeper Jordan Binnington, coming off of the Four Nations tournament. He has had, as I'm looking at the schedule, that is 1, 2, 4, 5 wins, 6 wins. Jesus, I missed one. 6 wins in, let's call it 7 or 8 games since coming back from Four Nations. So he's been hot, and he stood on his head in the third period in overtime, which was incredible. Bad news out of that game, though, is the Blues lose Colton Parayko for at least, it sounds like, 6 weeks. Locally, it sounds like we're getting word of him just getting his knee scoped out. That's supposed to be happening this week. Hoping for the best in that situation, just because you can get a scope and it's a couple weeks and you're back at it, or you can get a scope and it turns out there's a tear in the knee and he's done for the year. Definitely do not want to see that. But that led into the trade deadline on Thursday, or no, Friday, whatever day it was. I don't remember. It's been a week. But leads into the trade. It was Thursday. Yeah, I don't know. Today might be Sunday. I don't really know. Days of the week are tough. But leads into the trade deadline. And once the news of Parayko broke, it almost seemed like everybody's like, yep, we're going to go out and do something. And Sean, what had happened for the NHL trade deadline for the Blues?
Nothing.
Okay, good. That was a long topic. I thought we were going to take a long time on. There wasn't much for it, though. We were all hoping for something, but we got nothing. That led to the Friday. The trade deadline was Friday, Sean. Jesus, we need Kenny.
Oh, whatever.
He's our hockey guy. Because it was game day for Anaheim.
That's right.
So then the Blues played in Anaheim, Orange County. They made the long trek up whatever highway that might be. And they get a 4-3 victory. Binnington comes away with the win there. Again, in that third period, was just lights out. And really the 2 goals I believe they scored in the third period were probably goals that he would want back or really shouldn't have happened. I mean, let's be honest. And then they played the next night, Saturday night in LA, the Wil Wheaton game, as we'll refer to it.
Yes.
And they lost 2-1 in overtime. And everybody could kind of see this one coming. It was a back-to-back. Even though it was a travel day, it wasn't that far of a travel. But 3 games in LA, trade deadline, you knew this was going to happen. And they're losing that one. And I think it lasted like 40 seconds into overtime. Yeah. And even once overtime started, that possession, you could kind of see it was going to happen. So they go 2-1 this week. But the big news is they move into a playoff position. Or at least a better striking playoff position. I'll put it that way. I think they're 1 point out of a playoff spot right now. They're actually only 3 points behind LA if LA were to drop back. They were able to make up that much ground. LA sits third place in the Pacific Division. So if they fall back, that's a huge amount of points to be able to make up right there. They're 1 point out. Sean, what are your opinions?
So the Blues are 7-1-2 over the last 10. 3 straight games in LA, 2 against the Kings, who, if I have to remind you, I think we mentioned it last week. Coming into this, they'd only lost 3 games at home all season. So to walk away from 5 points from that trip is probably the ideal situation. I think you kind of hit on it. I think that really hits home why the Blues did not make any trades at the deadline, even with the Parayko injury. The biggest move of the season for this team was hiring Coach Montgomery. To their credit, they're seeing that decision through. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to settle into the new voice in the locker room. You don't always get that new coach bump. It's not always a guarantee. You can really start to see that they are buying in, especially the third and fourth lines. That was pretty evident over this past week. And you hit on Binnington. Dude, the goaltending this road trip was excellent. Both Binnington and Hofer really gave the team a chance to win in each game. Binnington had a couple moments, but I mean, if that is what you're getting from him, I'll take that every single night. They're going to need that without Parayko in the lineup for an extended time. he doesn't have the Bennington specifically doesn't have the flashiest numbers. He is undefeated in both February and March still. It's not the first time he's done this in his career. Yes, there was a YouTube comment, which was from our favorite user, at DeadBeatDad, which he said, quote, wait, Jordan sub 900 save percentage thinks he's getting paid double, LOL no, unquote. Listen, dude, if the team makes the playoffs, it makes a deep run on the shoulders of Jordan Bennington without their top defenseman, he pay the man. He's going to set a record for the highest AAV of any goaltender, which I think is currently held by Carey Price at like 10 million, maybe a little north of that. Pay him. He's going to get it. I'm pretty bullish on him. I'm feeling really good. Like I said, 7-1-2 in their last 10. They beat 6 playoff teams during that run. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it. The Parayko news sucks. I'm hoping. I think it's 6 weeks they're going to evaluate him. I'm hoping he'll be able to come back for playoffs, but I'm doubtful.
Yeah, I'm keeping my hopes up that he can, because without him, and I think the second LA game was probably an anomaly because of being the back-to-back, and Cam Fowler was out with the birth of his second child. Congratulations to Cam.
Congrats.
But he flew back to St. Louis to be able to be there for the birth, and I'm hoping that that's the anomaly. They do look depleted on the blue line, like absolutely just. It's not pretty. The good thing is they're playing team defense, though.
Yeah.
The bad thing is that I worry how much that's going to tire out their legs, is being back on defense. Everybody knows it's way harder to play defense than it is to play offense. You have to react. You have to cover a lot more ground. Offense, you're just making the move. So I think that is going to be the biggest concern. But like you said, if Binnington is hot and Binnington stays the way he is, it's going to be fantastic. The one good thing in their corner right now is their schedule. So they're still technically on a road trip, even though they came home. I believe they're coming home today. And then they're going to be home until, I think, Wednesday when they leave to go to Pittsburgh and then Minnesota.
Right.
But their schedule is relatively easy, or playing teams directly in competition with them. We'll get to this week coming up as far as Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Anaheim. But they also have Nashville, they have Vancouver, they have Chicago, they have Nashville again, Montreal, Nashville again, before they finish the month in Colorado. That gives them a really good opportunity to make up ground, especially when you play Vancouver. And even though Minnesota is still technically 2 spots ahead of them in the playoff race, they have 76 points, they're still close. They're still close enough. All those other teams are below you in the standings or even with you. Montreal is the only team that is close to even. They're at 66. The Blues are at 69. So I think this stretch through the end of March for them is going to be vital. If they can keep it going, then they play Winnipeg, Edmonton, and then they finish with Seattle and Utah. They have 4 games in the month of April. 2 of them are definitely winnable. They've even competed well with Winnipeg this year. So I think that's going to help. But man, their defense without Parayko is going to be tough. Like, it's going to be a big struggle for them to be able to push through.
In Jordan Bennington, we trust. If he can keep up this form, they have a genuine chance. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't see why he can't. I mean, they don't have a whole lot of back-to-back games. They had a couple Saturdays and a Sunday. Most of the stuff is going to be, with a day in between, thanks to 4 Nations. They really condensed that schedule down. So I think they can get him in. He's probably still going to play a 2-to-1 ratio with Hofer. But even Hofer looked pretty good against the Kings last night. So, and he had a big third period. Really, we don't get to overtime without his third period. Yeah. So I don't really see that as being a tremendous weakness. It's definitely going to be an advantage, if we can keep Binnington in more games than not. But they still got to play. They still got to go, and they're going to get tired, and that's going to be my concern. If they can't put up more than 2 a night, then I think they're gonna really struggle, and that 2 is going to be a challenge if they're playing team defense.
Yep, totally agreed. Let's go ahead and let's bounce over from the ice to the court. Mizzou basketball, they lose again. The Tigers lose in the final regular season game to number 19 Kentucky. They lost 83-91, so that's now 3 straight losses. It was a bit of a slog fest in the beginning. There was only a 21 total combined points scored in the first 10 minutes. No, I would not chalk that up to good defense. Kentucky was the first team to really wake up. They started hitting their threes. They shot over 55% from the arc, and Mizzou just never really recovered.
No, Mizzou, I think when I looked at halftime, was shooting like 29 or 27% from 3 point.
Yeah,
And that's a team that shoots close to 40 every other night.
yeah.
And then they ended up playing a really good second half. The problem was is that Kentucky just was able to keep up with them, and was able to stay even. I think the score in the second half was like a 54 spread or something like that. It was like dead even. But when you build yourself into a 9-10 point hole because you're not hitting threes, then that's going to be a problem. And the other big part of that is that Mizzou cannot rebound. So if you're missing threes, those rebounds go forever. And if you can't get those rebounds, then you're not going to have a chance to get the ball back and put points on the board. That's standard basketball. My bigger concern with them is their defense. In the last 3 games, their team defense has fallen off. I don't know what has changed. I'm hoping that it is a maybe just kind of a little bit of a relapse into trying something new, trying to get more guys some playing time, whatever it might be. I'm hoping that was the decision. But when a team that averages almost 11 steals a game is now only averaging, I think the number is like 7.5, something like that, that's a big drop off. And you also have a team that is averaging, I think on defense, or as far as points scored per game, they're in the low 80s.
Yeah.
And they were averaging in the 90s. I think it was like 93, 94 in their losses on the 4 of the last 5 losses. So I have major concerns about the defense. I'm not concerned about the team's ability. I still think this is one of those teams that gets hot and goes on a run, or could get hot and go on a run, but you have to be concerned after the last 4 games.
So, are you worried about them in the SEC tournament then? Or like if you had to put it on a scale, like 10 being the most worried, 1 being not worried at all, are you worried about them in the tournament and beyond?
For the SEC tournament, it's not the worry, I guess. Really the only worry for me in the SEC tournament is they lose the first game. So Mizzou with the 4 losses in their last 5.
Yep.
Ends up with the 8 seed. We were talking about, or 7 seed. We were talking about them at one point competing for a top 4 seed. They finished with the 7 seed.
We said on the last episode that they were not going to get less than 5th.
Yeah, and they did.
Yeah.
Which, if you've been following our bets on GTP bets on our pregame picks and notes before we post on a game, we are officially 0 for 2 on those bets, and we have given the kiss of death to Mizzou. So fade us, everything, fade us. Just keep the opposite. But Mizzou finishes at the 7th seed. They play on Thursday. They do get the first round bye. They play LSU or Mississippi State, the winner of that game. LSU is not great. Mississippi State is an okay team. You know, they're an SEC team. They probably, I would bet they're probably in. They're probably one of those border teams that at least needs to win their first game to be able to be into the NCAA tournament. For me, like I said, the worry isn't the SEC tournament unless they lose that first game. Then it's okay. Where's this team going to go? They're not going to fall lower than a 6 seed, I don't believe, in the NCAA with a loss in the first round. There are so many good teams in the SEC. I mean, legit, we are looking at it probably 10 teams from the SEC to go. So a loss in that doesn't hurt you as much as well as it just looks bad. But my concern overall is probably like a 6 right now. I mean, the team defense is the biggest one. I do think they have the better side of their bracket. If they would have been on the other side with the likes of Arkansas, Vanderbilt, A&M, even Tennessee, I would have been a little bit more concerned. But Mizzou is 6-2 on their side of the bracket this year. Their 2 losses coming against Kentucky yesterday, and then the other one was against Oklahoma, who they beat Oklahoma the first time. So having Florida and Alabama ahead doesn't really scare me. And as the bracketology posts right now, Mizzou, I believe, is a 5 seed out west. So they go to Providence and then they go to San Francisco if they get that far. And it's in a bracket with Florida. I mean, if they can stay in that bracket, I have 0 issues with the way that bracket reads right now. But the team defense is going to be an issue.
Yeah. So I think I'm a little higher than you on the worry meter. I'm going to go with a 7 with a tentative 8. To go deep in conference tournaments or even in March Madness, you have to do 2 things, and you have to do them consistently. You have to get to the line, you have to hit your free throws, and you have to play strong defense that doesn't put your opponent on the line. they're not doing that as of late. To bring it back to really quickly to
Right.
the Kentucky game before we talk about the two teams they might play in the SEC tournament. Mizzou shot 21 free throws and shot 66.7% from the line. Compare that to what the Wildcats just did. They had 33 attempts with a conversion rate of 78.8. Not great,
Yep.
Bob. So, yes, Kentucky shot 55% from 3 points. From the 3-point line, that's an outlier for me. If Mizzou attacks the rim and makes more of their shots, then we're having a very different conversation today. The other thing that is really worried to me is they're pretty one-dimensional as of late. The only starter to score in double digits was Mitchell. That's not going to win you games in tournament. So now to look forward to the SEC tournament, just like you said, they're either going to play Mississippi State or LSU. Since we don't know yet, to quick rundown of the two, Mississippi State, 20-11 overall, less than ideal in SEC play. They're 8-10. Bulldogs average at above average at the rim. They average 38.1 rebounds per game, which puts them right around about 60th in the country. So the key to beating them, don't limit them to second chances, limit them to second chances, both sides of the court. If Mizzou lets their guard, I believe his name is Keshawn Murphy, get under the rim, get established, that game is going to be a struggle. If they do get LSU, which is probably the ideal scenario, right? Because they've done a lot of losing this season, especially in conference play. They only have 3 wins. They're a top-heavy team. They don't really rely on one player to do the majority of their offensive work. They rank 137th in the country in assists. That's not good. That player that really does all that for them is Cam Carter. He averages 16.5 points per game. You beat LSU by taking him out completely and making the other two players that guard and their forward, Sears and Reed. You make them beat you, and I don't think that they could do that. So that is where I'm like I7. Like if Mississippi State kind of scares me a little bit, I think that they could legitimately lose that game. LSU, if they get LSU, I think it's a cakewalk.
Well, and I think that LSU did exactly what you said against A&M on Saturday.
Yes.
They played almost the exact same way. Their one scorer was able to score, and then A&M switched gears late in the second half and was like, "Screw this, we're not doing this anymore." And they just went on a run and shut down LSU.
Yeah.
I agree. LSU is by far the best option for us to be able to have. I'm looking it up right now. I'm pretty sure that game we throttled them as far as what the score was supposed to be, or score ended up being. Same thing with Mississippi State. I'm not overly concerned about that part. The SEC tournament does not matter unless Mizzou can go on a run and win it all. Because they're a 5 now. They're going to drop to a 6. Cool. I mean, it's not going to change much, although the 6-11 and the 5-12 are never great picks in the bracket. But they're not going to go lower than a 6. I mean, we're talking about a top 25 team no matter what you do. That's a 6 seed. So I don't think it matters much. It just helps them if they can win. And if they lose ugly in the first round, then yeah, that's going to be bad. But if they beat Mississippi State or LSU and then they go to Florida or they play against Florida, they're all going to be in the same place in Nashville. But if they lose to Florida, you lost to I'm going to say they're probably the number 3 seed overall. They're probably going to be a number 1. Or you beat Florida and you're most likely playing Alabama, who, let's face it, probably is going to be a number 2 seed, if not a number 1.
Yeah.
So I don't really see it being much of an issue unless they lose ugly. That's the concern.
I almost want to avoid the 5 seed. Is it bad to say that?
No, it's not. But like looking at it right now, again, this is where I'm kind of okay with it, except for who Mizzou currently is slated at on the Lenardi bracket, because it's the McNeese 5-12 spot.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we all know what McNeese tends to upset people all the time. It's not quite Norfolk, so we should be okay there. But right now it's Mizzou versus McNeese, and then the 4-13 is Maryland versus Yale. Okay. I would take Maryland. Maryland is a good basketball team. I think we could beat Maryland. Florida is the 1 seed in that bracket, with the 8-9 being Gonzaga, New Mexico. I'm still okay with that bracket. Okay. Illinois, Mizzou already played Illinois. They played them very close. Mizzou played Texas A&M. They're the 3 seed. They played them fairly close. Mizzou beat Ole Miss. Mizzou then would have to play most likely Texas Tech as a number 2 seed. That bracket is very, very simple when it comes to it. You don't have anybody like Houston. You don't have to worry about putting up with a St. John's. Yes, I'm going to say it. You don't have to worry about Kansas. You don't have to worry about an Arkansas. You don't have to worry about Alabama. All of these teams in other brackets, these other brackets are loaded. I don't know how Florida currently, the way they have it, Florida is the 4th overall number 1. You have Auburn, Duke, Houston, Florida. I don't know how Florida gets such a simple bracket. They shouldn't have that bracket, that easy of a bracket. If we can stay right there, okay, cool. That means you win 1 game. We beat LSU or Mississippi State. We are in that same bracket or same level of bracket. I'll take that all day long.
Yeah, I think I agree. Do you want to move to anything national headlines? Do you want to talk about the deadline review real quick before we get out here?
Yeah, so let's hit the NHL Trade Deadline. Really the one that I want to talk about, mainly because I found it very interesting on how this all happened behind the scenes afterwards. Mikko Rantanen, like we talked about last week, was likely to be traded. He did get traded. He got traded to the Dallas Stars. He ended up signing an extension for 8 years and $12 million, which was reportedly the extension that Carolina offered him. I found that very interesting. So he leaves, Carolina goes to Dallas. In the middle of all of that, Carolina trying to figure out the details, getting everything situated, they wanted to acquire Brad Marchand from the Boston Bruins.
Oh, wow.
That was their target. They were shooting for that. Because the Mikko Rantanen deal took so long to get finalized, they didn't have the opportunity to talk to Boston. Marchand heard about the trade talks, and he said, I want out. I want to go to Florida. That's where I'm going. And he got traded to Florida.
Wow. But Florida wins in all of that.
Florida wins in all of that. It's still interesting what the Hurricanes did in this trade season when you figure that they really are not getting a whole lot back. I mean, they got 2 first-round picks for Rantanen, which is decent. They didn't get a Martin Necas in the deal, that's for sure. So I think that kind of was interesting. Also, the fact that Dallas went out, not only did they extend Rantanen when he got signed, they also extended Wyatt Johnston. That team's going to be strong, and the Blues are going to have to put up with that in the Central for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. And that adds a lot of fuel to the fire if the Panthers and the Hurricanes match up in the playoffs, and it is likely that they will.
Yeah, definitely. Other trades that went down, the Avalanche landed Charlie Coyle from the Bruins. The Bruins are selling, which is interesting to think of.
Haven't done that in a while.
No, they definitely haven't. The Leafs, who were in on Braden Shen for a long time, I'm really curious, and we will never hear about it, about what they were actually looking to give away to get Braden Shen and what Army was trying to get back. But the Leafs acquired Scott Lawton instead from the Philadelphia Flyers. I think that's a good fit. And then the other one that I found was kind of interesting, and this one, for a couple different reasons, Dylan Cousins to the Ottawa Senators from Buffalo. One, he was a guy that I thought would be a really good fit here. The interesting part of him getting traded in general was that I believe the game before the deadline, there was a whole scrum in front of the net, and Cousins is just standing off to the side. Yeah. So I think that was part of it. But the one that's always very close to our heart is the Senators. They gain a center that is a very young center. I think he's 23 at the oldest. He's a good player. And now what does that do for Brady Tkachuk? They traded Josh Norris, which really affected Tkachuk. Does that mean that now they're more willing to trade him, or does he want to stay because now he gets Dylan Cousins? So it was an interesting deadline. There's some weird values that went out. Guys that were getting traded for picks that I don't think they probably should have really deserved. But I don't know. It's all on what people are willing to pay. So it is what it is.
Yeah, totally agree. The Brady Tkachuk rumors are definitely going to heat up in St. Louis in the offseason, just like they always
100%.
do, but they will again. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and get out of here. That was a good episode. Thanks, Adam. Socials, guys. Gateway Tailgate on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, we're on X. We're on Blue Sky. You can also get the show on Apple Podcasts. You can get it on Spotify. We're coming very soon to getting uploaded to Amazon Prime, as well as a few other platforms as well, so keep an eye out for that. You can email the show, gatewaytailgatepodcast@gmail.com. Get your opinion, say whatever you want. Tell us, what you thought of a specific topic. Really, whatever you like. gatewaytailgatepodcast@gmail.com. Final words, man, before we get out of here.
Big week in St. Louis sports. St. Louis City has Seattle on Saturday. The Blues play at Pittsburgh, at Minnesota, and home against Anaheim. And then Mizzou in the SEC tournament. We'll have a lot of stuff for you guys next week.
Yep, we'll have it all here. We'll wrap it up on the show. So thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you on Monday. Have a good one. Bye.